A Mark Brown Arthur chapter book. Muffy's Secret Admirer. Text by Stephen Krensky, based on a teleplay by Sandra Willard. For Michael Barron. Chapter 1. It's not fair, said Francine. She was sitting with Arthur, Binky, and the brain on the stairs outside the school auditorium. They had just finished showing their exhibits at the science fair. Arthur wiped some white dust off his face. Mine probably would have made a better impression if it hadn't exploded, he said. Francine laughed. You mean you didn't do that on purpose? Arthur shook his head. I told DW not to fool around with the ingredients. He cupped his chin in his hands. But I don't think she listened to me. The brain nodded knowingly. Well, my experiment didn't explode, but it might as well have. There's no chance I can win now. And I really wanted that award for the best exhibit. So did I, Francine admitted. You can still do it, said Arthur. Any of you. No way, said the brain. Muffy's going to win for sure. You saw what happened. When she served pastries to the judges, they made all those happy noises. And they were big pastries, said Binky, licking his lips. Covered in whipped cream and filled with all kinds of good stuff. But that shouldn't matter, said the brain. Even if they were from the best bakery in town and served on fine china with linen napkins. Which, of course, they were, Francine noted. The brain folded his arms. They had nothing to do with her project. Nothing at all. That wouldn't bother Muffy, Arthur reminded them. You know how her mind works. She thinks money can buy anything. Well, Francine admitted, it does seem to buy most things. But this should be different. The brain agreed. It's a crime, a mockery of our educational system. I mean, I worked for weeks on my blackboard of the future. And I worked for days on my lessons from lunch nutrition poster, said Francine. Don't forget me, said Binky. I worked for minutes, at least 2 or 3, collecting rocks near school for my rocks near school diorama. The brain frowned. If there is true justice in the world, Muffy won't get away with this. Judges should not be swayed by gooey fillings. Maybe they won't be, Arthur said hopefully. Ha, said the brain. But what can we do? Francine sighed. The laws of science don't seem to apply to Muffy. Binky pounded his right hand into his left. There are other forms of persuasion, he reminded them. Trying to outdo Muffy won't improve the situation, said Arthur. She can outspend all of us put together. Arthur is right, said the brain. I am? Asked Arthur. Absolutely. The brain folded his arms. We can't compete with Muffy on her own terms. We have to find another approach. Like what? Asked Francine. The brain frowned again. He seemed to be doing that a lot. I don't know yet, he said. It's going to require further thought. But I know one thing. He stood up abruptly and thrust his fist toward the sky. I'm going to get revenge. Chapter 2. Wanting revenge was one thing, but figuring out the right kind of revenge was something else. At recess, the brain sat on the playground trying to determine his next move. Francine sat next to him. Maybe I could make Muffy's teeth turn green, he said. Some kind of spinach potion, perhaps. Francine considered it. Green would clash with most of Muffy's outfits, she said. And Muffy would hate that. But remember, she has that new Solar Sonic toothbrush. She could probably just brush the green away. I'd forgotten about that toothbrush, the brain admitted. Wait. Imagine this, Muffy is riding along on her bike, picking out property she plans to buy someday. Suddenly, a big magnet appears over her head. She tries to pedal faster, but she cannot escape. The magnet gets closer and closer. Then it grabs hold of the bicycle and lifts it and Muffy into the air. He smiled. I can hear her screams already. That would give her a good scare, Francine agreed. But where are you going to get a big magnet? And what will hold it up? A helicopter? And where are you going to get that? The brain looked pained. Give me a little time. I didn't say I had worked out all the details. Francine snorted. You're going to need more than a little time, she said. Arthur came over to join them. I can see by your faces that your revenge plan isn't making much progress. The brain just growled at him. Arthur shook his head. Brain, you have to let go of this. If you don't, you'll go crazy and your brilliant scientific career will be ruined before it even starts. Go away, said the brain. I can't talk to you. I must concentrate all my thinking capacity on the task at hand. They haven't even announced the winner yet, Francine reminded him. Who knows? Muffy might lose. The brain snorted. Sometimes it's better to forgive and forget, said Francine. Be noble. Turn the other cheek. Stuff like that. Stuff like what? Asked Muffy, who was passing by with Prunella. Oh, nothing, said Francine. By the way, said Muffy, I still have a few pastries left over. Does anybody want one? Francine and the brain said nothing. Maybe later, said Arthur. They're really good, Prunella told them. Muffy smiled. You should know you had 3. Francine, you might like, oh, right, I forgot. With your new interest in nutritional values, pastries are probably a bad idea. Muffy shuddered. Honestly, Francine, I don't know where you got that idea. Who wants to know all that food group stuff? I eat what I like and I like what I eat. Prunella laughed. That's a good one, Muffy, she said. Food for thought, Muffy added. Prunella laughed again. Then they walked off together. Francine glared after them both. I may have been too hasty, she said, turning to the brain. Maybe we shouldn't give up on revenge just yet. Chapter 3. The kids returned to Mr. Ratburn's class after recess. Muffy was still talking with Prunella. So I'm trying to decide where to put the award. There's a nice spot in my bedroom, but not as many people will see it there. Maybe the living room would be better, Prunella suggested. You may be right. Over the grand piano would be worth considering. I'll ask. She stopped suddenly, seeing a folded piece of paper on her desk. What's this? She wondered aloud. She opened it and started to read. What is it? Asked Prunella. Muffy didn't answer. She just kept reading and reading and reading. Then she gathered Prunella, Sue Ellen, Francine, and Fern. You won't believe what I got, she said. A new bike. An entertainment center. A trip around the world. No, said Muffy. I mean here at school. It's a note. What kind of note? Asked Sue Ellen. Muffy smiled. You be the judge, she said. Listen to this. Dear Muffy, I have long admired you. Regardless of the difference in our ages, that means he's older. How can you tell? Asked Sue Ellen. If he was younger, said Fern, he wouldn't know how to write. Prunella wasn't so sure. Maybe he's a genius kindergartner, she pointed out. Please, Muffy said. There's more. Thad to make my feelings known. You are so mature, so stylish. I think about you every day. Your smile, your laugh, the way your clothes stay so crisp and the colors never fade. I hope you return my feelings. Sincerely, your secret admirer. Muffy sighed. She pictured herself having a picnic with her dream guy in the back of one of their matching Rolls-Royces or going down to the bank to count each other's money. Maybe he's even in 5th grade. Prunella shook her head. Any 5th grader who would write a letter like that is nuts. I don't think so, Muffy insisted. He obviously appreciates maturity and fine clothes. Prunella shrugged. Muffy grabbed Francine's arm. Let's watch the 5th graders and figure out who wrote the note. I can't, said Francine. I have cafeteria duty. All right, then, you come with me, Sue Ellen. Sue Ellen groaned. Francine smiled to herself as they walked away. The brain watched all this from another table. A smile slowly spread across his face. What are you so happy about? Arthur asked him. You look like one of those cats that swallows the canaries. All that's missing is the feathers. The brain tapped his fingers together. Have you ever realized how easy it is to manipulate someone into doing what you want? Arthur shook his head. That never works with DW, believe me, I've tried. The brain said nothing. Brain, you're acting kind of weird today. Am I? He laughed. It was like a laugh of a mad scientist from some old horror movie. And it gave Arthur a chill. Chapter 4. Francine was stacking trays in the cafeteria. All around her, people were talking. Did you hear about Muffy's note? Asked Fern. I think the paper was very expensive.